I am a dyslexic, here to talk to you about dyslexia. Now, before I talk to you about dyslexia, I'd like to draw your attention to the title I've given this talk. Stupid is as stupid does. Now, some of you may recognise this as a quote from one of my favourite films, Forrest Gump. It's a beautiful movie about a man who has an extraordinary view of the world and what he sets out to achieve. Now, when someone asks him, "Are you stupid or something?" he just replies with, "Stupid is as stupid does." I like that quote. It means a person's intelligence and common sense is shown by the person's actions, not by their appearance. And that brings us back to dyslexia. Some of you may know what it is. Some of you may even be or know someone who is dyslexic. Some of you may not have a clue what I'm on about. And that's why I'm here. Because 1 in 10 people in the UK are dyslexic. That's 6.3 million people. But so many people just don't understand or just aren't aware what it is. Dyslexia is a learning disability that affects the speed and the way a person learns, but does not, and I repeat, does not affect the intelligence of that person. It is caused by differences in how the brain processes information, letting people think outside the box, giving dyslexics an unusual way of thinking, learning, communicating, and problem solving. An example of a common dyslexic reading mistake is in my summary. Some of you may have thought this was a typo, but some of you may have read the last line as silver lining. It is in fact sliver lining. Now, this doesn't mean you are dyslexic. Not all dyslexics will make that mistake. We are not all the same. But it's an example, and the mistake I have made many a time. Dyslexia has only now been recognised because the education system is putting more pressure on students to succeed in classroom tasks, exams, and literacy. So what should be a learning difference is a learning disability. So I ask you, why did a third of young people in 2014 fail to achieve their expected GCSE grades of A stars to C? And the answer is not that they were stupid or incapable. No, dyslexia is a gift. It is because not enough schools offer the help and support needed for people with dyslexia. I was diagnosed when I was 10, and although I have had many troubles and confusion in my journey of being dyslexic, I don't regret a moment of it. It's who I am. Well, it turns out my brothers are dyslexic as well. Understandable, as dyslexia can run through families. However, unlike my parents, who are fascinated by our dyslexia and take it in their stride, there are those parents who refuse to admit their child's gifts, almost as though their child had some mental illness, and ignore it and hope that they'll grow out of it. Well, no can do. Dyslexia is a full-time thing. Well, the best way to tell you what it's like is to tell you my story. You already know that I was diagnosed when I was 10, but my troubles started much earlier than that. When I was a toddler, I was late starting talking, was extremely good at listening, but not hearing, and not remembering instructions. All early signs of dyslexia. But what stuck out the most was my literacy. When I first started school, and I quote from my mother, a very smart, cheeky little girl, and I was very good at most of the activities we did. But one of my favourite lessons was story writing. To this day, I love writing stories. Even one of my teachers said I was going to be an author one day. But that's when things started to go a bit downhill. In year 1, spelling tests were easy. The longest word I had to spell were only 4 letters long, and as I would read a lot, I knew how to spell those. But in year 2, things got turned up a notch. Spelling started to become a chore, and provoked many tantrums and brushing my hair at the time. I would sound out words as I would spell them. I still do. But that doesn't always work with the English language, one of the most complicated languages in the world. Because if the past tense of look is looked, why is the past tense of see, saw, not seed? As I began to fall behind my spelling tests, never improving. I failed to see why, and actually started not to bother and hide my spelling sheets away so I couldn't practice. My reading wasn't going so well either. Again, I would say words literally as they were spelled. I would always struggle on long words. But how is this different from any other 6-year-old learning how to read? Well, with help from my school, all my classmates and friends would move up and improve, leaving me to try and figure out on my own. You could just say I was stupid, but that would be incorrect, because I was above all my classmates in maths, history and science. All of them, but English. You can understand my parents' confusion. In year 5, my first year at middle school, I was beginning to accept that I was stupid in English and spelling. When spelling tests were to 20, and the most I ever got was 11. Even in maths I started to feel dumb when we were learning our 4 times table. We would learn our 4 times table for a week. Then, every Friday, we're given a grid with numbers of the 4 times table, and I had to work out what number times 4 equaled the number of the grid. E.g., 12 would be 4 times 3. If you completed the grid in 1 minute, you would move up to your 5 times table, then your 6, and so on. Scientists have now discovered that a dyslexic brain takes a fraction of a second longer to respond to certain tasks, such as a test. By the end of half term, everyone was on their 6 times table. Everyone except me. I knew the 4 times table like the back of my hand, but couldn't work quick enough to finish the table. In the end, my math teacher let me move on if I completed 3/4 of the grid. Year 6 was the year everything turned around. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Drama is my passion, if you haven't already noticed. And every Saturday I would go to drama club with my brother. The lady who ran this club worked with children with severe learning disabilities, such as dyslexia and dyspraxia. While I was reading a script, she noticed I had some very obvious dyslexic traits. She told my parents her suspicions. They then told the school. I was tested at school, but they found no major problems. So, was I just stupid? Annoyed, my parents decided this had to end. They knew I wasn't stupid. So, missing a day at school took me to Bath to be tested at Dyslexia Action. There I was tested by a kind man, asking me to do strange exercises, like remembering sequences or reading nonsense sentences. I was also given biscuits and juice, so no complaints from me. So it turned out I am dyslexic. Not severe, but dyslexic. It explained everything. After 10 sessions of one-to-one tutoring on spelling and reading, I was back on track, finding new ways to make learning fun with whiteboards and chocolate raisins. In my experience, I found 3 main ways of making learning easier. Number 1, mind maps and bullet points. I used to hate making notes as they would be messy and I wouldn't understand what I was on about. Now I use bullet points for small things like chores I need to do and mind maps for topics at school. The colourfulness and organisation help me visualise things better, making big things smaller. Number 2, organisation. Is not a hard skill to master. It just takes a little more time to make everything run smoothly. Even packing your bag the night before school can make a big difference. And number 3, computers. Although I found touch typing a nightmare to learn, technology is amazing when it comes to spelling. The amount of times I use spell check while writing this talk is unbelievable. Now that I'm having the support I need, doesn't mean I don't make the odd mistake. For example, and this is a recent story, in English a few weeks ago, we had our essays back from assessment. Now Sir had circled a word that I had spelled right, so why had he circled it? Well, he came over and said, "Oh yes, I just thought this was a very interesting word to use. Here is the sentence I wrote. He admitted that he was wrong." Still not seeing it, I asked, "What do you mean, sir?" "Well, people don't usually admit that they are wrong." Now I was really confused. "Why? What does admitting mean, sir?" Well, when you emit something, it's like a phone emits a signal. That was not the definition I was thinking about. It was this point a girl next to me said, "Do you think she means admitting, sir?" Easy mistake to make. But that's my voice, out of millions. But only 5 out of every 100 dyslexics are recognised and receive assistance. 1 in 6 adults have the reading skill of an 11-year-old. And 1 in 5 children that leave primary school are below the national expected levels of reading, writing and maths. And this is because schools don't offer the support and help, and not enough dyslexics are diagnosed and recognised. Some schools have even resisted when parents have asked help for their child. It's not like I'm asking every school to build a whole facility for dyslexic students. Even small things, like allowing those students more time in their exams, or using a netbook while working, can make a big difference. And it's not just the schools that are involved. Those parents that suspect their child to be dyslexic, get them tested, tell the school. Too many dyslexics aren't tested and just believe they are stupid, so don't bother in their schoolwork. Get them tested, tell their school they can get the support they need to get the grades they deserve. Because dyslexics aren't stupid. When I tell someone I'm dyslexic, the common response is, "But you're really smart." Here are a few examples of famous, high-achieving dyslexics. Richard Branson, a billionaire that failed his GCSEs. Leonardo da Vinci, a historical genius. Walt Disney, the creative mind that made my childhood. Albert Einstein, a genius. John Lennon, an amazingly creative musician. Whoopi Goldberg, an Oscar-winning actress. John F. Kennedy, a president of America. Agatha Christie, a mystery novel master. And so many more gifted and talented dyslexics that helped the world become what it is. And what about me? I am here delivering a self-written talk with top set English and the expected grades of A stars in my GCSEs. Because I can't say it enough, dyslexia is not an excuse for being stupid. Far, far from it. It is the gift of thinking outside the box and seeing things from another perspective. It just takes longer for us to put it down on paper, that's all. My dyslexic brother got 12 A stars, A's for his GCSEs, and is on the road to Oxbridge. So don't be afraid or ashamed of your child. They just might need a little more help to find their feet. But when they do, my word, they'll be running faster than ever. So if you're going to take anything away with you from this talk, let it be this. The knowledge that dyslexia is not the weights that hold us down. It is the wings that help us fly. Thank you.